Namaskaram and hello. Today I was supposed to go caving, but I woke up with a bit of a nasty earache and some congested sinuses. And in an activity where balance, coordination, proprioception, all that good stuff is very vital, and you're doing it for like 5 hours, maybe it's not the best idea, to go do that. And I certainly didn't want to jeopardize anybody else's safety. And obviously, I don't want to break my neck. So there's that. So do it again in the future. I'm really bummed though because I want to get savvy at caving so then I can tie in wilderness rescue into the tactical medic training that I'm doing. But there's just all these things that you want to do, all these new skills that you need to develop, and just so little time and energy. But the entire process will take some time anyhow, so we'll work it in. And it's just a good group activity. So it seems like a good group, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. But it is important to know your limitations, which leads me to today's topic, boundaries. They're great. They are. They are. Sometimes, though, we can get into a habit of either like over fortifying our boundaries and having a low distress tolerance for any kind of boundary stepping or boundary crossing. And then other times, on the other end of the spectrum, we can be really laxed and just be like, oh yeah, go ahead and disrespect those boundaries that I've clearly made to you. Yeah, I'll kind of start with the people who let those boundaries be crossed and disrespected. And this does tie in, excuse me, this does tie into the attachment styles that I'll talk about in a future episode. I've already touched on them. The mainstream collective thought out there is that there's anxious, insecure attachment style. There's avoidant. There's disorganized, which is kind of like all over the place, but a mix of anxious and avoidant. And then there's stable. Stable. I think a lot of people like to think that they have a stable attachment style, but from professional and personal experience, a lot of times those are avoidant people who think that that's super like stable and healthy. But those people have a very low threshold. Their boundaries are very tight, it's like very strict parameters. And if one toe goes over that line, like they're done. They cut you off, they get rid of you. That's not healthy. And I'm not talking about the big betrayals as I've discussed in previous episodes, like stealing money from you, like your savings, or cheating, physical, sexual abuse, or severe mental, emotional, spiritual abuse. I'm not talking about those things. It's just any little thing, outside of those big ones, those bigger ones. And so you'll see people who are of an anxious attachment style, their boundaries, they'll say they have these boundaries, and then when they feel that they've met the right person, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, family member, even business partnerships, they will give grace and okay, so this person disrespected me in this way, and I felt that I made it pretty clear this is a boundary for me. Please don't disrespect that. But I mean, they're such a good person. Like, I can see it within them. So like what I said in a previous episode, like, don't fall in love with somebody's potential. Fall in love with the reality of who they actually are in the current, time frame, right? Don't fall in love with their potential. It's so easy to romanticize that and say, oh, but if. So don't do that. It's going 9 times out of 10, probably like 9.5 or higher, it's going to end in disappointment and disaster for everybody. So fall in love or appreciate and want to give your loyalty, which I've discussed in the past what that is, when you know that this is who I'm actually dealing with. I've gotten to know how they are consistently, not just their words, but their actions and behaviors. And that will be another future episode where we talk about just saying things is not the same as proving it with your actions, your attitude on a consistent basis. Like, just because someone says they're sorry that they did something, but then gets mad at you for wanting to work through it, and then as a boundary for yourself say, hey, I need to work through this because what you did was a big betrayal, or it crossed a huge boundary of mine. And I want to understand, for us to understand both sides, how this happened, how it affects us, and how to resolve it going forward. And when someone gets mad at you for wanting that resolution, right, that's not a good sign, because that means that they're going to continue to disrespect you going forward, or there's a high probability they will continue to do so. And I'm sure many of you out there have experienced that, especially if you are an anxious attachment style. So you'll be the one that works harder to make the relationship, friendship, partnership last. And that has a lot to do with your self-respect or lack of, and your need for validation that I'm worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of someone choosing me above others. Like, not in everything, because if people have other priorities in life, like kids, or, an elderly bedridden, parent, or whatever it is, or they've already made like a marriage, they've married to their, into their job, they run a company, that's different. So outside of that, like if we're going to be, partners in this venture, or best friends or lovers, I need to know that you choose me first. I'm your like alpha and omega, right? I'm first and last for you. Like, there's nobody else. And so that you're hoping to get that validation that you're worthy of that, right? I guess this discussion is actually kind of turning into attachment styles and how it relates to boundaries. But again, we'll be diving deeper. It's a good thing I didn't go caving. We'll be diving deeper into those topics again and again, right? Sometimes you need to hear these things over and over, and you forget to add this, or you want to reword this. I mean, that's perfectly fine and normal. It shouldn't be like a one and done TED Talk, okay? So with the anxious attachment style people, you deep down, there's something missing with self-love and respect and loyalty to yourself, right? And it's usually something from your childhood where you didn't get, the care and the attention that you needed and deserved as a child. Just a very dysfunctional upbringing, whether it was with the parents or, other family members in the house, or um, you know, moving all the time, busy parents, workaholics, or maybe they actually had substance abuse disorders, whatever it may be, you didn't get what you needed as a child to thrive, right? And that will be another topic. Is what really bothers me more and more is that parents really, they enable their kids to be so entitled and not understand that life is hard. Life is going to throw curveballs at you at any moment, and you have to be prepared. Childhood is not meant to be completely free of all sorts of hardships and traumas. No. And in fact, most of humanity, if we're going by, what a lot of people theorize, we've been around for 100, 300,000 years. Like, most of humanity has had to deal with men, women, doesn't matter. You've had to deal with hardships. Like, the past, couple thousand years has been insanely easier for us, especially in the past, like 50 years. It's been insanely easy for people to thrive compared to it was, 5, 10, especially going beyond that. And this ties into the whole tolerance and resiliency issues that I've touched on, and will, go into more detail in the future, because that is a big problem. And I see parents that think that childhood should be just, this magical land. And then when they're adults, okay, push them out. They're on their own, but I hope they still love me and, help me out when I get old. That doesn't make sense. And that is unhealthy, because those kids are going to have a very rude awakening at some point in their life. Like, it will be shocking. And I see it all the time, both in the workplace, in my profession, and personally. What's that I hear you say? Justin, you don't have kids? Yeah, you're right. But that doesn't mean that you disregard an outsider's opinion and observations, because you will fall into the trap of, well, I'm a parent. You don't understand. Only other parents get that. So you're becoming very, very narrow-minded, and you're getting stuck in that, and you're going to miss things because you got your blinders up on the side. So an outsider's perspective, who is not like maybe a parent, or who is not close in your life but is working with you like professionally, right? You might want to listen to what they have to say, even in the end, if you just determine it's all BS, or they're talking out of their butt, or they're being manipulative, there's some kind of gain, but you should still listen to them and take in consideration what they have to say, because they're seeing it from a lens and a perspective you cannot, right? So I see that happen a lot. And again, that was a tangential sidebar with yours truly. It's going to keep happening. You know it is. So back to the anxious, though, those people, they just give and give and give and give. All of them, their whole self, please pick me. I'm so worth it. Like, I am giving you everything that I can. Which is funny, because a lot of people say that they want that, but then when they actually are confronted with it, oh no, I can't deal with that. It's too much. And it's scary, because especially if an anxious attachment style forms a relationship or a friendship with an avoidant, oh boy, where do I begin? On one hand, that is like huge opportunity for growth and gains for both people, because they both are like at opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And at the same time, or on the other hand, you're gonna there's gonna be some conflicts, right? Because your styles are very different. So when the anxious is letting, first of all, we'll back up. When the anxious starts giving and giving, trying to say, this is how much I love you, to show it, this is how much I love you, right? The avoidant starts to, backpedal a little bit. Like, I don't know about this. This seems a little too good to be true. Deep down, this person, I don't know if I can give back to what, like this person is giving to me. And I love it. I like it. I want it, but I just don't know if I do it. And then maybe I'll disappoint them and I'll hurt them, or they'll hurt me in the end. And so they start backpedaling deep down in their psyche. That's what's going on most of the time. So when that starts happening, like you're meeting in the middle at the beginning, and then you become a runner chaser dynamic. And that just eventually, if you're at least one of you has to like pump the brakes and be like, okay, I'm not going to run anymore, but you need to hold on here. Like, let's talk about this. If that doesn't happen, then it's going to be a very slippery slope often. Like it's just going to get worse and worse. And excuse me. So what ends up happening is the avoidant usually, not always, but the avoidant usually says, I don't really like this, and starts to go hot and cold, and then starts to, as a way, maybe they're not consciously aware of it, but they start disrespecting the anxious attachment style persons, the chaser. They start disrespecting some of their boundaries. And then what happens is that often triggers, that word again, it ignites. It sets in motion this downward spiral where it's like, oh no, like I'm not doing this right. I'm not giving enough, or I'm not giving it in the right way. I'm not expressing myself, how I want. And I really love this person, or I really respect them, like them. I really want to have this partnership with them, whatever it is. I gotta fix this. And so they start chasing harder, and then they let their boundaries be disrespected. So, and then what you'll see on the other side is an anxious will start putting up more and more boundaries and like just fortifying those walls. And so you get into this vicious cycle, and it often doesn't end well unless both of you can come to your senses and realize what's going on here. Really, and it goes to that previous episode about communication, and then being honest, transparent, and understanding what your boundaries are. So boundaries, why they're super important to have healthy boundaries, is when you're letting somebody disrespect those boundaries. When you've started to let that happen, what do you think that says about yourself? Usually it's, I don't even respect myself, because these boundaries are important to me. But you know what? F it. This person can disrespect me because I love them, I care about them, or I worry about what's going to happen if I hurt them, with the truth or whatever. And it really says that you don't value yourself as much as you should, because you have to prioritize yourself first. And I'm not saying to a degree of narcissism, right? Where you're just the center of the world. No, it's if you're not able to respect yourself, have enough self-love, and respect your boundaries, then you're not going to be much good to other people. And it goes back to what I was just talking about, this vicious cycle, is when people start letting those boundaries be disrespected again and again and again, how that happens is when you first make an excuse why it was okay, or, I can let that slide, is you're in your higher self, hopefully before that, when you've started out this friendship, relationship, partnership, whatever it is. You're cool, calm, and collected and confident in yourself. And then something happens, you start to get confused or worried, like, oh, what's happening? I don't get, like, what did I do something wrong? Or, oh man, that was stupid what I did. Oh, I got to fix this. So you start lowering yourself, you start debasing yourself, you step out of your higher self and into your ego. And the ego, as I was saying, it really feeds off of material world-based things. That's not just physical items, but sense gratification. A lot of people like that are Krishna devotees will talk about that. And that means like responding to your senses and also emotional reactions, right? So when you're in your higher self, usually you should be able to recognize, that's someone's trying to bait me to get into my ego here and have like a trauma response or a knee-jerk reaction, and then engage in that BS, in that toxicity. And that is a trap, because once you step into that trap, it sucks you down. And it almost never ends well unless you're able to recognize it and pull yourself out of it, right? Maybe someone else can help you, like alert you to what's going on. But sometimes, like when you get stuck in that downward spiral, like poop has to hit the fan for you to wake up, unfortunately. And then you have to pull yourself out. So that's why it's important to have those boundaries and to stick by them, right? It's not saying that you can't, forgive somebody for crossing those boundaries, breaking your trust and hurting you. No, and you should work for that, towards that if it really appears like you both care for each other still. And because that's good, because we're human and we mess up. So I think working through that doesn't mean that you have to go back to, you're never going to really be able to go back to the way things were once boundaries are really crossed like that. And there's a hurt that takes a long time to work through, even if it's just one of the people in the party, or if it takes them a long time, things are just not going to be the same again, right? But that's life. Like I said, nothing's permanent. We have to learn how to deal with loss and change. All right, and that's an opportunity to grow. So being able to respect those boundaries, though, and say, no, like what you did, like I can forgive you for that, and we can seek closure or resolution, but I'm not going to forget it, because that can't happen again. And even going forward, you have to demonstrate to me that you can respect those boundaries, not with words, but with actions and behaviors and your perspective. And if someone is not there, it's like what I was saying, like about communication. If both people can't come back to, the foundation, the cornerstone of why they came together in the first place, like out of love, respect, care, interest, all that, then there's really no point in trying to force communication. It's just not going to happen. And it's the same thing with boundaries. If someone can't recognize how they disrespected your boundaries and why it hurts, and like, if they're not without you saying it, without you asking, if they're not just on their own volition and accord trying to make amends, and, oh, if this happened to me, what would I do? Okay. Like whatever it is, like I would not want this person talking to this person anymore, no contact, or there would have to be really strict boundaries with account information, money, assets, whatever it is. Or, like there's going to be certain social situations neither of us as individuals or with other people or together get involved in. So they have to naturally like understand the boundaries that they crossed and how they hurt you and disrespected you, and how to show that they are sorry and they understand. They have the empathy and sympathy and are trying to work through, whether it's forgiveness or, making amends, getting closure, whatever it is. They should naturally be showing that to you without you asking. And if they don't, and you have to ask, you have to like argue your side of it, boy, girl, whoever, just get out. Peace the F out of that situation, because that person will continue to disrespect you and your boundaries. Okay? You'll get sucked into it. And again, if you're in love, that's being in love, or that's being attached to how things were before that boundary or the hurt came about that was caused. Like, you are attached to how they were before that, not how they actually are now. Or you're attached somehow to their potential because you've seen like glimpses of it or instances of them being in their higher self. No, you have to walk away from that and wish them the best, right? Truly wish them the best, because you don't want them continuing to do that to other people or to themselves, because that means they're not progressing in life. I mean, you should want other people to realize what they've done, how they've been acting, and step into their higher self for the betterment of their life and all the lives around them, right? So again, that is why like boundaries are super important. And you do want to evaluate if sometimes you have like a death grip, super fortified, low threshold for BS kind of boundaries, because that might mean you're just super guarded. And this is how I keep myself safe, right? Oh, one pinky over the line. That's it. Off with your head. You're done. And people that do that, that will just cut you out of their life and try to remove all traces of you, that is also immensely unhealthy. You can see why, right? I mean, they're not like actually dealing with what is causing some sort of hurt or confusion within them. Like they're avoiding it. They're avoiding at all costs that stimuli. The stimuli or the triggers that are, within them, like, oh, those are dark, icky thoughts. They're so painful. I don't want to deal with it. Nope. Okay. I'm going to put up all these walls. I'm going to be super tough and strong, saying no BS allowed here. So when people do that, though, when they try to remove you, like excise you like a tumor, or eradicate you like you're some, highly virulent disease, right? Like, that is not a good sign. Especially if like there wasn't some atrocious acts done to you. You just both were maybe being like in your egos and acting very reactionary with very reactionary behaviors, or very toxic, like, because it's, it takes two to tango. So you need to be careful of those people too. Like, if they have very low tolerance for any kind of BS and disrespect, even like at things that most other people would probably be like, yeah, it's a little severe, right? That's easy, Hufflepuff 616, right? Just calm down. It's going to be okay. But healthy boundaries, like not wanting people to diss you in front of your friends or their friends, but playfully do it. Or you've been with somebody for, like a year or more, and they still haven't introduced you to their close circle, or even their, buddies from work or their neighbors. Like, that's a huge red flag too. That should be a boundary for you. Like, wow, am I being hidden? What's going on here? Are you not proud to be with me? Like, as a friend, as a lover, as whatever, like. And, then the bigger ones, right? Like, not, whether it's infidelity or having an affair, whether it's emotional, sexual, spiritual, whatever it is. Sorry, I got one of those weird rogue hairs that are like pointing outwards. I don't have a problem, so I don't, and it's not funny. Okay. Yeah, so, the bigger ones, like cheating of any kind, or constantly omitting things that for you is a boundary. Like, I need you to tell me this, like from the get-go. I want you to tell me if X, Y, or Z happens, or you're thinking about doing X, Y, or Z, right? And if they're not doing that, then they're not respecting you. They're not respecting your boundaries. And they had a choice at the beginning to be like, am I okay with that? Do I want to have to tell this person X, Y, or Z? Because if they're not, like, whether it's effed up or not in your head, that's their choice. And if they said they would like agree, Okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then they don't, well, then they've lied to you, right? They've broken the loyalty. So they've disrespected your boundaries. So this person's going to do it again, right? If they've done a huge boundary crossing, like I've mentioned, chances are they're going to end up doing it again, whether it's against you or somebody else, until they work through all of their stuff, BS, toxicity, pain, trauma, whatever it is. They're going to probably do it again. They may go for a long time without doing it with the right person, but eventually it's going to happen again, right? So it doesn't mean that people can't change. I'm a firm believer that people can change. I have changed a lot since I was a kid. And even in the past year or two, like, I've changed a lot. I would say, yeah, definitely in the past year. I've changed a lot. I've grown. But that's a good thing. We're going to continue to do that. We get opportunities as long as we're drawing breath. We have opportunities to change, for better or for worse. So I'm going to leave it there because this is a much longer video than I intended, but I kind of combined like the attachment styles and boundaries because they're good examples. And I do want to add that it doesn't mean that an anxious attachment style and an avoidant can't be wonderful together. On the contrary, I think that if you both are being transparent, honest, your authentic self, and you're trying to respect the the sanctity of the loyalty that you have, man, you can have like an amazing relationship. There's going to be so much growth, opportunities for growth at least, and so much for both of you to learn from each other. Like, that's amazing, that's great. And it's not to say that like an avoidant and an avoidant can't do well together. They can, as long as they're in their higher self and they're recognizing, oh, I think we're cutting each other off, and running away too easily, or we're avoiding certain topics or hard truths. If you both can do that, then that's wonderful. That's great. But at the same time, you can see where the pitfall is. You both are gonna, drop of the hat, just cut each other out of your life. And then at the opposite end, you have the anxious, two anxious people together. You're just going to death grip each other and try to get each other to, understand how much I love you or why this is important. And then you're just stuck. At the same time, if you're in your higher selves, then you can be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Let's get a little bit more distance there, right? Respect those boundaries. And then you can thrive. You can have a great relationship. So it's not that all these different combinations, it's not like there's an ideal one. And in the future, I will talk about these people that are secure. There are people like that. I have met those couples. And I've been in those friendships and partnerships with people. And I think they're definitely possible, but I think some people, it's just like social media, you try to portray who you want, not just other people to believe how you are and who you are, but how you want to believe you are. And even some of these videos, like, I'm trying to act more like my genuine self, which is a little goofy at times and then very passionate. But at the same time, I'm trying to make this coherent and concise for everybody. So yeah, and I'm just getting started with it. These are more warm-up videos when I get everything set up properly, and the branding and all that, which will start up here pretty soon. I think it will be better, and I'll be a lot more relaxed about these videos. But boundaries, to sum it up, I said this like 5 minutes ago or more. Please examine your boundaries that you have. Maybe write them out. Like, what are my boundaries with certain people? And you can be specific, with my husband, wife, partner, with my business partners and coworkers or my friends, or this person specifically. And write what those boundaries are for you, and examine the boundaries. See if you're being too harsh or way too relaxed. Examine if you've let certain people cross those boundaries and disrespect them, and how you've responded once they've done so. Like, I really encourage you all to do that. I mean, I've had to do it, and sometimes you're like, wow, like the lack of self-love and respect I must have for allowing certain people to have done what they did time and time again, or for getting involved with certain people where a mile down the road you saw the red flags and maybe even some of the orange and yellow flags, and your brain for some reason is like, no, it'll be okay, I'll turn them green by the time I get there, it'll be fine. You got to pay attention to that. It doesn't mean that you can't move forward with that person, but if you're noticing there's potential red flags, you have to really, really pay attention to that, because your boundaries, you will let your boundaries get disrespected, and you will get hurt, and you will step out of your higher self and back into your ego, which is going to feed off of any kind of trauma or unresolved issues that you've had for years or since childhood. And it's just going to spiral out of control. So please just find time, 5, 10 minutes to sit down and examine your boundaries. And are you respecting them? And then if you are in a relationship, whether it's stable or it's rocky, my advice is work with that person and talk about, what are your boundaries? Do you feel like they're being respected? Do you think you're, way too strict? Or just have a discussion, that good communication, and go from there. Okay? Like, all this division in the world lately, I just don't know how people think that, well, if everybody just ends up at the same conclusion that I have, it will be okay. But we're going to go to war with anybody that doesn't end up at the same result, the same solution, the same facts. Make sure, though, that everybody's ready for good, healthy, open discussion and trying to understand, and not just conversing to make your point and respond. Okay? Because if that person isn't, if you said, please don't say this to me or do this to me or whatever, and they just don't acknowledge or keep doing it, you don't have to block them or whatever, but just be like, okay, I'm not giving you any more time or energy until you understand how you are disrespecting me, crossing my boundaries. All right, this is a lot longer. Maybe it's all the headiness, but I think it was a good talk. Yeah, good talk. So best of luck on your journeys. I truly do mean that. Even for those out there that may not like me, have a strong distaste for me, I do wish you the best, because I honestly want you to be able to step into your higher self. Okay, even if it doesn't mean like we become best friends again or whatever, or even really like each other, but as long as we can respect that, we want everybody to be healthier, and find true joy and stability, not false empowerment and all these material-based things that you cannot take with you when you die. Then I think that's a good step, right? So best of luck. Try to examine those boundaries that you have, and maybe with other people in your life, and see what theirs are, and see if you guys are respecting your own and each other's. Take care till the next time. Don't go caving if you don't feel balanced and all that. Eventually I will, and I'll take pictures and I'll show you. All right, y'all, take care.